Hello, my name is Jaylee Ziegler. This is for ECED 2515 with Professor Tracy Keelty. Today I will be discussing developmental delay ages 3 to 5. National definition states a child with a disability includes a child experiencing a developmental delay, defined as a child at least 3 years old but not more than 9 years old who is experiencing delays in one or more developmental area, requiring special education and related services. This definition is used under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. A more specific definition is when a child does not reach expected developmental milestones such as motor skills, speech, or social skills at the same pace as their peers. At what age is this disability primarily diagnosed? As I said earlier, we are focusing on 3 to 5. About 12% of students around this age have a delay, and with 88% not having a delay. We can also find in birth to 3 some delays. However, there isn't as much treatment as there is for children 3 to 5 besides early intervention, and also 5 to 9 when they can start using those resources more and more within a public school setting. We can look for these signs if they are delayed in one or more of the following areas: adapted or self-help development, cognitive development, communications development, social or emotional development, physical development, including fine or gross motor skills. What are the initial signs? Trouble with fine motor skills, the capacity to perform actions like zipping a coat, using small muscles, particularly in the hands and fingers. What are the initial signs? Development. The method, which is language development, the method by which young learners acquire language comprehension, usage, and communication skills through speaking, listening, reading, and writing. Typically at this age, students should be using 3 to 5 word sentences and be able to engage in a conversation with a peer. If they cannot, we can always look into the student possibly having a delay. Social and emotional skills, the ability to establish connections, understand and regulate emotions, and communicate with peers in appropriate ways. We can look if a student is more reserved and they like to be by themselves. We can look to see if maybe they're just a shy person, or they might have a delay and not be able to regulate their emotions and communicate with their peers. Easily identifying the signs. This video shows the difference between a child with delays versus without.
The first child has trouble with tasks, like holding a texter. The second child holds the texter correctly. The first child doesn't engage in pretend play. The second child does. The first child has trouble following simple one-step instructions. The second child follows instructions. The first child has aversions to certain textures. The second child plays with items of different textures.
How common is this disability? As we can see below, between the age gaps, 12% at 3 to 5 are diagnosed with a How common is this disability? Well, 12% by 3 to 5 are diagnosed with a developmental delay. That is a huge chunk of students that have this disability. We can also see at ages birth to 17, 17% of the entire world are diagnosed with a developmental delay. Developmental delays can also be a symptom of other underlying medical conditions, including autism spectrum disorders, cerebral palsy, and fetal alcohol spectrum disorders. Are there ways to reduce or prevent of this disability? Kind of. You can do simple things such as avoid toxins such as nicotine and alcohol during prenatal care. As we saw on the other slide, fetal alcohol can play a role. Limiting baby talk. Talking to your child in a regular voice can help them sound out words, understand how they should say them. Talking in a baby voice can confuse them and not allow them to understand how to speak in a regular voice. Screening early is a very important thing. You can get screening at 9 months, 18 months, 30 months to get early intervention. Moving into early intervention, you can talk to specialists such as speech to prevent issues they might have in the future. Encouraging play, taking them to parks, bringing them to play groups, getting them into a daycare settings. Being able to surround a child with other children helps with the social and emotional aspect of a developmental delay, so they are already comfortable around other children. Milestones. Assure your child is meeting milestones. They do have charts you can just keep on your refrigerator, and as they get older, you can take a peek at them. And if you notice that any are not progressing as they should, you can always talk to your doctor. What are common characteristics of a developmental delay? Things such as motor skills, language delays, emotional social delays, cognitive delays, and self-help delays, or a few that we can name that might be the sign of a developmental delay. Things as using hands and fingers, limited speech, trouble with interacting with their peers, struggling with problem solving, and difficult daily tasks. Here's an example. This is a child named Liam. He is 3 years old. He has trouble following basic instructions, does not use short phrases. His motor skills. He has problem using utensils, walks unsteadily, and has poor hand coordination. Social and emotional. He frequently throws tantrums, likes to play alone, and makes little eye contact. Cognitive. Challenge with basic routines and problem solving. Self-help. He is not yet potty trained and requires assistance with dressing and feeding. As we look at this, we can use these as teachers, write down the notes, and present them to the parents and discuss that they might have a potential delay, as these things are things we are seeing. The laws that cover this developmental delay. There are several federal laws that protect individuals with developmental delays, such as the Developmental Disabilities Assistance and Bill of Rights Act of 2000, aka the DD Act, and the ADA. This law supports programs that help people with developmental disabilities live independently, be included in their communities, schools, and have access to services. It also ensures their rights are protected and that they can participate in decisions affecting their life. And in Connecticut, the sections listed above detail the procedures for identification, evaluation, and educational placement for students with disabilities. They cover acts like parental notification, due process, and the right to free and appropriate public school education. What are the health concerns associated? There are risks: behavioral and emotional concerns, hearing or vision problems, motor challenges, and speech and communication difficulties. These things can affect them in the future, such as having anxiety, poor coordination, and having trouble expressing their needs and leading to behavioral issues. Teaching strategies. There are many things I can do as a teacher to help my students with developmental delays, such as hands-on learning, divide work into manageable chunks, practice and repetition, make use of visual aids, charts, pictures and timetables, and feedback and support. Down below, I'm going to show you a video of something I use in the classroom to help my students understand their work, not through just visual, but also vocal learning.
Is going to sing it for us.
January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December.
Here's an example of something I did with my students this week. It is Mother's Day, so we did a Mother's Day project, and I have students with developmental delays. We first broke up the work. So we started with this. I have students that have trouble reading and writing, so I took my students one by one and we did this project together. I wrote it down while they took the time to think. If my student was having trouble understanding the question, I reworded it so they had many ways to think about it. Then, for their hands-on work, we did this art project. Environmental modifications. There are many things I can do as a teacher, such as establish a routine, establish quiet areas, use adaptive tools, identify the environment. Here's something I could do as a visual tool. We just recently redid all of our classrooms and we took these things into consideration, such as we have visual aids here, separate play if students need to play by themselves, and we also have a calming corner just for the students that are overwhelmed or might need a minute. For effective schedules, routines, and transitions, we try to follow a regular daily schedule, and we also have it written down. Though I don't have a picture of our specific one, here's an example on the side. We also do transitional warnings, but before switching activities, I give my students a 5-minute and 1-minute caution. Typically, our 5 minutes is when we start cleaning up, and 1 minute is taking a break and being able to switch accordingly. And between switching tasks, we could also use music or timers to make it easier and more interesting. We can also incorporate breaks. Children enjoy brief scheduled pauses, and it helps them just to calm down and reduce impatience. And here are my sources cited. I appreciate you all listening to me today. I hope you learned something about developmental delays and can take it into your own classroom when you're taking in consideration your students with such. Have a great day.